Hey there, good looking. How you doing? And what you got cooking? Hey, Chewy.
Apparently, what we've got cooking is a New Zealand first ad on.
Yeah, I saw that.
Straight out the gates. Fuck's sake.
Hilarious. Eh? We should have started taking like a tally, like back when people started talking about. We had Act Ones pop up because we've got all the ones with the money. Interesting talking to Raf last night, talking about the war chest that's coming in for New Zealand First at the moment is the same people who have been funding ACT and those people as well. So
Of course. These pricks can't pay taxes, but they've got all sorts of money under their fucking couch cushions for Winston Peters and David Seymour. My heart bleeds for these pricks. We need to go for them.
Yes. People are voting. Gary says he voted wearing his If the Left Vote hoodie. No problems. Might be more strict about it on election day. Yeah, interesting. Actually, are they billboards? I like Tracy saying, sorry she's late. We've been going now, Tracy, for 1:40. But, you know, we'll forgive you for being 90 seconds. In fact, the way you're looking at it, it's probably a 30-second delay, so you're probably 1:10 after we started. Hey, good to see you. See some people in the chat, Chewy. We're not doing this tonight as a story because there's too much New Zealand stuff around. Talking about Donald Trump and talking about what the ball's up in America at the moment and the fraud trial that's going on, and the judge basically, first of all, making a decision because the evidence was overwhelming, so there was no jury trial needed. And then the second part of it, there was no jury trial given, and it turns out that Trump's lawyers didn't tick the box, said we would like a jury trial. And now Trump's complaining.
Super competent.
And now Trump's complaining they're not even giving me a jury trial. How undemocratic is that? And all his lawyers had to do was tick a box that said jury trial. They didn't tick that box, so that means they didn't request a jury trial. And then, of course, Speaker of the House got overturned today, which is fascinating.
What was it? I haven't looked into this, but the thing that I did see is this is the quickest Speaker of the House has been rolled since 1897.
It's an absolute dumpster fire. Absolute dumpster fire.
It was just like he's not pro-Trump enough.
Yep.
So the Republicans are definitely just going, yeah, cool. We're happy with all of this petrol sitting in our house in open containers.
Well, the thing now is it was six pro-Trump because the margin that they've got in the House is so small that they only needed kind of 4, I think it was, people to turn away from the Speaker and the losers, and 6 turned against him. But what that means now is who the fuck is going to take over? Because you might not have enough. Let's call them moderate Republicans to get someone through, but the extremists don't have enough to get someone over the line either. So it's a dumpster fire. And I tell you what, there are a lot of commentators in America. Excuse me, I just got to put my drink back in my fridge here. There are a lot of commentators in America who are saying that I'll just say it for the third time, the dumpster fire that it is might actually help the Democrats at the next to win the House back. Or Congress back, House back. I always get confused between those two. So
I mean,
yeah, I haven't really prepped. I haven't prepped anything for it. But I've been watching it all day. I watched Sam Cedar did a live stream just off his phone while the votes were coming through, and I had it on in the background. It was just a fucking fascinating time, eh? Sorry, Joe, you go.
You know, I was just saying, you know, if I was to be uncharitable, maybe that there's a lesson there about letting your right-wing party get infiltrated by a bunch of reactionary, like even more reactionary, crazy fucktards. Don't worry, National, I'm sure that's not happening to you.
Well, don't. But also, you know, someone's pointed out. I've had quite a bit of interaction with people today about our top interview last night. We're going to do a little bit of recap on some things out of there as well, based on some stuff Luxon said this morning. But a lot of people were saying that top today. Now, this is just commentary from you guys, but I think it's interesting. Top today is Act of 1996. Because ACT in 1996 were more socially liberal, and they've gone further and further and further and further and further and further to the right. A lot of people, surprisingly high number of people, maybe I'll bring it up. I put a little clip on TikTok, and all of the comments on it were like, "Top, we're not going anywhere near you now. Top, you assholes. I thought as much. Yada 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 yada." So it's fascinating. It's fascinating actually, and
I really do think that did him some damage. And I think that is going to benefit the Labour candidate there.
Yeah, maybe. But I think you're right about the damage, because actually, if you're on the right, you've already got 3 parties that you can split your vote up amongst. Why would you need a 4th? What's Top going to offer you? And if I get the feeling, we'll look at the polls tonight, I get the feeling as well, and I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, you can testify to this, Chewy, that National and ACT are going to continue to trend down, and they'll need a third party to get through. And Top, if he somehow wins Ilam, he won't have enough people that he drags through with him from his list vote, from his party vote, to actually be enough. I don't reckon they're going to get within 3, 4, or 5 seats of having a majority. I think they'll need another party to go there, and Top won't be enough. Unless, of course, the only way that they'll do it alone is if New Zealand First gets like 4.9% and doesn't get to the 5, because then that'll cut down the margin of how many valid votes there are, and that might get them over the line. So for clarity, for people who are wondering about that, let's say ACT gets 10 and National gets 35%, so that's 45%. But what it is, if you think about it as a fraction, it's 45 out of 100, right? Because that's what percentages are. But what changes with the votes that don't make it to 5% is they get removed, but it's not an equal amount of removal from the percentage. So let's say 7% of the vote don't get counted from all the little minor parties. So that means actually it's not 45 out of 100, it becomes 45 out of 93. So that's how you get more seats. So if let's say they got 48% of the vote, that means only 4 or 5% would have to be not counted for them to be 50% of the seats. So if they got 48% out of 100, you can't get there. But if it was out of 95, because 5% of the vote get cast off because they're all the 1% parties, then they get there by themselves. That's the 2 parties together. So, yeah, I mean, New Zealand First getting there might actually mean that they have to go 3-way should they be the successful parties. New Zealand First not getting there but getting uber close might mean that National and ACT can go it alone, based on the polling numbers, even the ones from tonight perhaps. So anyway, it's fascinating. And like we said last night about the number 8 on the New Zealand First list, if you're going to start pitching to the conspiracy theorists and the far right, people who are worried about gender issues and all that kind of stuff, then of course they're going to turn up in your candidates. And that's what we're talking about in America. That's what you're seeing turning up in America. Yep. If Trump's going to go that far right and that authoritarian, then some of your candidates are going to become authoritarian because they're there because of Trump, which means your party is going to become more authoritarian. And you're seeing that on the right in New Zealand at the moment. Maybe not quite so much in National, a little bit, but certainly in ACT in New Zealand First, you're seeing that, Chewy.
Oh, when you're talking about the American experience, you can think back to the Tea Party.
Yep.
What simple days when those guys were the crazies.
Yeah.
I think they'd almost be seen by the MAGA crowd as being moderate these days. Look, the other story, and this is just a quick story before we kick into it, Pat. I saw a little thing on stuff that said people aren't receiving their voting packs.
Yeah,
like 1.4 million people haven't received their voting packs. I did. I got mine, so I'm a special little boy. But just to reiterate, I'm sure chat already knows this, but you do not need anything to go down to a polling place and vote. You don't need the Easy Vote card. You don't need your ID. You don't need to be registered.
Easy Vote card just saves time.
Yeah, it is purely time saving.
Yeah.
And because we've got so long to advance vote, just go now. Don't wait for the voting pack.
Yeah. Just
go and vote.
Yeah. Yep. Get in there. Let's say, because I've updated our billboard, and say huge thanks to our patrons. We've got a bunch of new people on there, by the way. LNE is a coffee runner. Dale Brandfield is a coffee runner. Mulu Magic is in the fuel level. Adele, I don't think it's the Adele, because if it is the Adele,
you never know though.
But $8 from the
she's
Adele.
A good socialist.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's probably
And so people are joining up left, right, and centre to our Patreon. We appreciate it very much. A reminder: if you're not a patron and you want to be one, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. And on election day, we'll do a virtual meetup. So 11 a.m. On the day of the election, we'll do a meetup, and anyone who is a patron is welcome to come along. And yeah, we'll see how everyone's going. I've decided who I'm going to vote for. I've made the decision.
Oh yes,
Yeah. Do I share it or do I not? What do we do? Do I share it?
Well, look.
I mean, I can share it because
the really weird election rules in effect that you can't. Like, I mean, we walk alone, right? You can't influence. I don't think you can sit there and go, you must go out and vote for this party.
Of course you can. We can say that, but I'm not. But like, I'm more thinking about, does it matter? I mean, I'll tell you, I've decided to vote Green, and I'll tell you why. And I was floating between the triangle of Green, Labour, and Māori Party, and then I kind of put Labour Party to the very bottom, and then it was sort of Green and Māori Party, and the only thing that kind of put me between Māori Party and Green, again, it's more strategic than anything else, is that there is a small chance, that the Māori Party could miss out, because if they don't win those seats, they're not there because they're not going to get 5%. And so there is a 0% chance that the Greens won't be there. There is a 1% chance that Māori Party may not be there. So really, I would have gone with either of them happily. But if I want my vote to 100% count, that was my deciding reason as to where I was going to vote. So I'm not. So I don't want me to put you off voting Māori Party, because I think they will be there. Of course, I think they'll win electric seats. But in my head, I'm just kind of going, even a 1% chance, maybe I'll just go the other way, because I couldn't really split them for who I was going to vote for.
Do you think spending the last month looking at my screen being green has influenced you?
I think that was the determining factor. I think that was the determining factor. So that's what I'm going to do. I haven't done it yet, but because I've now decided, I will just go and do it in the next couple of days. University, Otago University there's an early one there, and you just go into the library, and I don't know whether my voting packs come or not. I'm not very good at clearing the mail. There's some things up.
It literally doesn't matter. Like, I've got mine. I didn't take it to work, and then the first day of voting, I was like, no, fuck, I'll go and do it. Name, address, date of birth, done.
Yeah. And to be honest,
I had a couple of interesting.
Sorry, let me just say one more thing. I was going to say, no, I interrupted you, but I just realised I want to add one thing, because I don't want to put people off voting for the Māori Party, because if I had an 100% assurance they would be there, I probably would vote Māori Party. So that's how kind of close it is for me. It's like, I'm happy to vote for either of them, but, you know, if there's a 1% chance they won't be there and a 100% chance the other guys will be there, that was just like, okay, well then I'll, you know, it's like if I was hiring someone and both people had exactly the same credentials, qualifications, I might go with someone who can add something new, like maybe they're a minority, or maybe they're female and I've got a workplace full of males. If they're exactly the same in everything else, but there was one thing that was different, that brought a different perspective to my workplace, that could be the reason. So the one thing that's different from these two parties for me is that there's that 100% assurance the Greens are going to be there, and there's like I don't know what the percentage is, a 95, a 98% assurance that the Māori Party is going to be there. All right. Sorry, Joe, I'm finished. Just to explain.
No worries. I had a couple of interesting conversations with my workmate. So, well, a couple of workmates, actually. One of them is very keen on top, and he watched our show last night, and he's like, okay, well, that was interesting. And he was full steam ahead up to that point to giving his vote to whatever local top candidate he was here. He was going to party vote for someone else, but the candidate vote was going to top. Absolutely. And then he realized that he's not in the same electorate that he was. And top aren't standing a candidate in Tairi. So he's like, bugger, there goes my plan. So sometimes the border moves around on you. Then the other conversation that I found quite funny, this workmate of mine was like, so I did that vote compass thing you were talking about last night, and I have questions, and I was like, oh, sure, how did you get on? And he goes, it said I should vote for New Zealand first. And I was like, you broke the vote compass.
No,
why would you do that?
The vote compass is like the BMI, body mass index. It's a very, it's a singular thing, because like it'll ask you a question, and I'm terrible at those things because I'm like, well, what are the criteria? Like, aren't there 7 different options for this? And there's like yes or no. So like I was talking to someone today. I did it, but I can't remember the questions. There was a question about a trans women playing in sports, and like I think it's different saying playing in sports versus say playing elite sport, playing. You know, does archery matter? Of course, archery doesn't matter. Does rugby make a difference? Makes a bit of a difference. So it's very hard to make an absolute statement based on a question that just talks about a massive issue like, I don't mean massive as an important, but like the breadth of what sport is, to kind of go yes or no. So that's why they never really, but like I scored higher than I thought I would with the ACT party, and that would have been just probably around my views on free speech. And they would have gone, free speech? That means you're a far right. But it's like, no. So just take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt.
When I asked him, I says, well, before you did the vote compass, who were you planning to vote for? And he was like, I was going to vote Green. And I was like, cool, don't change that. Yeah. Do I have to come with you to the polling booth? Do you need to be watched? So
anyway. Hey, well, let's, shall we just do the polling first then, eh? This is the professional nature of this.
Is there a hot, fresh poll out of the oven today?
Fresh poll, fresh out of the oven. Let me just push play and then make this full screen and then pause it maybe. And then I can turn it out for the Golden Fox. So it's quite interesting. We've talked a little bit about, I've kind of said before that I think we could get to a point where New Zealand First could be the balance of power either way. And I know New Zealand First has said he's not going to work with Labour, and Chris Hipkins says we would never work with him again. So it's not going to happen. But it seems that the polls at the moment are getting to that point where if you were to project, and we don't like projections, but if you were to project, that New Zealand First could go either way and put either side in. So it does raise the question, Chewie, that if National and ACT and New Zealand First under this hypothetical couldn't make a deal, then what? Do we have a hung parliament? Do we have another election? Did Chippy and Winston figure something out? Don't know. But let's have a look at the overall numbers.
Favourite for the top job. Both main party leaders have had a boost, but for the first time ever in our One News Varian poll, Christopher Luxon's inched ahead of Chris Hipkins as preferred Prime Minister. But it's not all good news for the right. Support for National and ACT has been trending down for the last month, and on these results, they'll still need New Zealand First. Political editor Jessica Mackay has the exclusive numbers.
Hi, Jess.
With just 9 days left to vote, the numbers are firming up in our latest weekly One News.
That's bullshit. The numbers are firming up. What? You mean now they're definite? This is what the result's going to be. Sorry, it's not the case. These are a snapshot of the last 7 days of what people thought. They're not firming up.
This Varian poll. Let's take a look. National is steady on 36, no change from last week. Labour is also steady on 26, 10 points behind. No change for the Greens too on 13,
however,
but ACT is down 2 from last week, now on 10. New Zealand First is steady on 6. Te Pāti Māori also stays constant on 2, and the Opportunities Party is now on 2 as well. Let's take a look at some of the other...
Just remember, margin of error is normally about 3 to 3.5%. So it means that Te Pāti Māori and Top, well, maybe not Te Pāti Māori because they've got a couple of seats, but Top is, I guess that 3% puts them to between 0 and 5%. It means New Zealand First, it puts them between 3 and 9%. So, the margin of error means New Zealand First could easily not be there. So really, the margin of error impacts these bottom parties. It doesn't impact the top party based on like scientific looking at the poll, like how the science works in these polls.
The parties now, and quite a few registering. New Zealand Loyal,
Just quite, what the fuck is New Zeal? Any idea? New Zeal? No idea.
Aotearoa legalised cannabis, Freedoms New Zealand and New Zeal are all on one. The number of people who don't know how they'll vote is now 10%, so those votes are still up for grabs.
So that'll be about 300,000 people.
Time to turn this way now and see how these numbers translate to seats in Parliament. On that side, National gets 46 seats, all of these blue over here. Add in 13 from ACT, that's 59. 2 seats short of the 61 needed to form a government.
So hypothetically, if Top had two people there, they could form it with Top. Top had 3, they could form it with Top. But I still don't think Top's going to be there. That's what I mean. Like, I know Raf last night was saying we're going to win. The polling says, I haven't seen any evidence of that, none whatsoever. And to be really clear with you, I'm going to talk about Raf a bit later on. To be really clear with you, if they knew they were going to win, if he was polling 50, 55, 60%, why would he be running around the country right now going, we should do a deal. We should do a deal. I think a deal would be smart. Maybe we should do a deal. A deal would be smart, because if they were going to win, there'd be no point doing that. So I don't buy the narrative. And personally, and this is not new, we've been saying this for weeks, I don't think they'll be there. Just my thoughts, though.
So National would have to pick up the phone and ask Winston Peters for the support of his 8 MPs in grey there.
So remember, 8 MPs means the number 8 on the list is Nuremberg 2.0. Miss Nuremberg 2.0, she's number 8 on the list.
Over here, these 33 red seats go to Labour, add in 17 from the Greens and 3 from Te Pāti Māori, and that's 53.
Now, this is what I'm saying. 53 plus 8 is what, Chewy? 61. So at the moment...
I wasn't expecting math this late.
Yeah, I know that sometimes I ask you questions, so I'm not doing that anymore. So, so at the moment, based on these numbers, which aren't the election results, but under these hypothetical numbers, Winston Peters could put either side in.
Well short of forming a government. Let's bring up the preferred Prime Minister numbers now. After 4 weeks on the campaign trail, Christopher Luxon is ahead for the first time, up 3 to 26.
What the fuck,
Chris
New
Hipkins
Zealand?
is just behind on 25, going up in popularity despite being in COVID isolation. Winston Peters is steady on 4. David
What the
Seymour
fuck,
has
New
dipped, now
Zealand?
sitting on 3.
Yeah, but look, we've been talking about this. We've been saying for the last couple of weeks that the shine has come off David Seymour. It seemed fairly obvious. The polling was saying that, and now even like leadership polling is saying it. Do you remember when Don Brash made his Orewa speech? It was in the middle of the year of the election year, and they skyrocketed up, and then they spent the next 6 months just doing this and doing this and doing this and coming down and coming down. This is what ACT has done, not to the same extent, but they reached their peak maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's just been slowly trending down since then. Not massively, because you can't really trend down much from 13 or 14%, but there has been a decline in the support for ACT, and I think you've seen it directly go to New Zealand first. That's my gut, at least, anyway.
And Green MP Chloe Swarbrick and Green co-leader James Shaw are both on 2. So that's how the numbers are looking, with a week and a half to go until the election day.
Quite a good story coming up. We'll watch the story as well. But you want any thoughts around, before we get into that that TVNZ story, any thoughts around the actual the polls there, Chewy?
Just to reiterate, what the fuck, New Zealand? Come on. Like, it's definitely this part of the election cycle where I wonder if I'm going crazy again, because we've been following everything that Luxon's been doing, and he's been atrocious. Like, by every metric, has not been across things. His policies are getting torn to shreds, and people are going, yeah, I'll give him a go. What can he do? Crash the economy?
Maybe Luxon is the example of you don't vote for the Prime Minister, because actually he's not popular. You know how we've talked about this? We talked about this just last night and probably the night before as well. And I was like, yeah, I know technically we vote for a party, but we do kind of vote for maybe Luxon's going to be the first Prime Minister that the people didn't vote because they wanted to have a beer with him. They just didn't want to have a beer with Chippy so much that they voted for Blue. Maybe, I don't know.
It's the whole thing as well. You know, it's tying into that narrative. I saw a story that said advanced voting is a lot slower than it has been previously, and I hope that's not a trend.
No, since 2020. But what was 2020? 2020 was COVID. Of course.
Okay,
like on the first day, there was 50,000 here versus 100,000 back then. Of course. It was at the end of the first year of COVID, and there was massive restrictions. Of course, early voting was going to be bigger during COVID. So I don't think that's
I hope so.
Well, no, but you might be right. Voting might be down, but to look back to early voting in 2020 and early voting now, you can't compare them. Because early voting in 2020 was everyone trying to sneak in when there was no crowds while they were wearing masks, because it was in the middle of all the COVID stuff. So I wouldn't read anything into that. Now, as I will always say, it doesn't mean that voting is not going to be down, but the media beat up on, oh, voting's down. Look at the early voting. Yeah, you can't compare. You can't compare. It's like, I don't know. I can't even think of a comparison. It's like a year where there was a tsunami and people couldn't get out of their houses versus a year where it was perfect weather.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the voting difference. It's like, well, there's a reason as well. It's not just the headline. It's what's the details of that headline. So,
well, I certainly hope you're right. You know, my brain definitely tied that narrative together of like, oh, people aren't voting because they think it's a foregone conclusion. You know, there's enough people out there undecided or not registered to absolutely swing this fucking thing, and they're overwhelmingly young, and they're overwhelmingly the people that National don't want to vote. So, so if you know someone that's not voting, I can grab them, shake them.
Now, I'll say this again very clearly. We might be down on voting this year. That might still happen. But the people not voting early compared to 2020 is not indicative of that. I mean, if they were honest actors, they'd be looking at what was the early voting in 2017 and comparing it to now. That's what they should be doing. And funnily enough, Chewy, no one's done that. No one's done that, Chewy. It's weird, eh? Because maybe it's not quite such a good headline. Maybe. All right, let's watch the end of TVNZ.
Got me.
Story. Let's have a look. That's why you've got me, Chewy. I'm here to always fix it for you. Here we go. Oh, God.
After trying and trying, Christopher Luxon.
Do you know that this is actually
preferred Prime Minister?
But this is actually incredibly easy. This went around as an internet meme for such a long time, and it's actually a very, very easy thing to do. So Chewy always says that he's terrible at politics. He's terrible at bottle flips as well, because this is... Most people should nail this after one or two, because the weight at the bottom of the bottle actually stands it up, and you can't even do that.
And has finally come out on top in the preferred Prime Minister numbers.
Too much water.
Party vote National.
It's taken 4 weeks of intense campaigning, but now more Kiwis want the Blue Chris in charge.
I think New Zealanders want to change a direction, and what they want is leadership, and team and energy and ideas to take the country forward.
Despite being trapped in isolation and campaigning via Zoom, Chris Hipkins has gone up in popularity as well.
Look, obviously it's not an ideal way to run an election campaign.
It's the most positive thing I think he's done since is getting a positive COVID test.
Labour wheeling out a new line today
piece
too.
Of shit.
I think New Zealanders know that if National and ACT win, they're going to lose. If National and ACT win, they're going to lose. If they win, they're going to lose.
ACT has dipped this week, which means National would also need New Zealand first.
It's a huge worry for New Zealand. We need a stable, united government that's ready to cut wasteful spending, get your living costs under control from day one. Another vote for ACT would actually secure that stable, united government.
Look, I hate the phrase kingmaker, but the reality is...
No, you don't.
We've got an obligation, no matter what the circumstances, to try and ensure a 3-year, stable, much better government. That's our objective, and every one of my colleagues knows that.
So will Winston...
Every one of my colleagues, except for the one who wants to launch Nuremberg 2.0. She's got some different priorities.
St Peters commit to swift post-election negotiations.
I've all got quickly enough, yes.
We've polled weekly for 4 weeks, and National and ACT support has waned. For the first 2 polls, they could govern alone, but in the last 2, they'd need New Zealand first.
But again, if we're being fair... If we're talking about margin of error for the parties, margin of error for the polling still puts them above 60. So, you know, is this media making a bit more noise than they should? It also, margin of error, puts them down to about 56 as well, which would be significant.
Well, what we're focused on is making sure that we get New Zealanders understand what's at stake. You know, no one in New Zealand would say they are better off than they were 6 years ago.
See, how much horseshit is that? Like, just think about what he just said. No one in New Zealand would say they're better off than they were 6 years ago. No one in New Zealand. Now, we've talked about the theory of the black swan, right? That if all you need to disprove the statement that all swans are white is to provide one black swan. So he just said no one in New Zealand would say they're better off. So if there's any lotto winners watching, are you better off? Like, I know that's a silly example because it's not about the economy, but he said no one. He said no one in New Zealand. And that's obviously just false because lots of people are better off. How about Fonterra with a record-setting year with profits? How about Fonterra? So they're not better off with record-setting profits? No one. no one's better off. It frustrates the shit out of me because it's the absolute quintessential example of bumper sticker ideologies that no one pushes back against. No one. So what if the reporter he was talking to was it like tertiary education 6 years ago, and now as a TVNZ reporter, are they better off? They probably are, but no one, says Christopher Luxon, no one is better off. Utter horseshit.
What's your path to power? Is there still hope for you?
There's still a week and a half to go, and what we're seeing is quite a low voter turnout at this point, because I think there's still a lot of undecided vote out there. There's still a lot of Kiwis who are going to make up their mind at the last minute.
As all parties
Research
battle
doesn't
it
say
out
that.
for their chunk of the votes.
Yes, just 10 days to go. Jess, what do these numbers mean for the final stretch of the campaign?
With only a week and a bit to go, National would have been hoping it could just coast towards the election. Instead, with New Zealand First looking not only likely to be back in Parliament, but also needed as part of a coalition, it's going to have to really get out there and scrap. National already put out a plea to its voters last Monday saying we need just a little bit of extra support. That hasn't worked. The numbers haven't shifted. Psychologically, that preferred Prime Minister number will feel really good for Christopher Luxon. Usually it's the actual Prime Minister who is ahead on these. Labor, behind the scenes, behind closed doors, are saying they think they've done a good job sowing the seed of doubt into voters' minds about what a National Act New Zealand First government would look like. What they do admit, though, that they haven't been able to translate that into votes.
And specifically, poll numbers not good for ACT either.
No, this is definitely not a good poll for ACT. It has been trending down. It peaked at around 13, now sitting on 10 today. David Seymour, though, does have an opportunity to convince voters and bring those numbers back up. He'll be coming here to TVNZ tomorrow night and be standing and battling it out against Winston Peters in our debate.
So that's tomorrow night, 7 p.m, whānau, and of course we're going to be here for you with that. Tonight, 7 p.m, the show will start at 7 p.m, but it'll go for the full length of the debate. Make sure you come along, bring your popcorn, if for no other reason to watch Winston Peters versus Jack Tame Part 2. If for no other reason, that's worth coming along to watch. And also, you know, we can thirst as well. We'll thirst trap you. What did I say? I saw a message that came in. There it is from Liam. The idea of no one's better from 6 years ago. So Liam thinks we should just say no one wants National or ACT. I think that's exactly the point. That's exactly, you might as well. That's the same from the other side. No one wants National or ACT. No one's better off. So, nah, actually, that's not entirely
true. And you see heaps of those comments around, like we've seen them in the chat when someone wants to come in and start swinging roundhouses. Is, you know, everybody's sick of Labor. These huge sweeping statements that you can objectively go, well, no, not everyone. Oh, National's going to romp home. It's going to be a landslide. No, objectively, it's not. It's going to be close.
Well, I mean, I would always respond to that as probably not, because you never know. I mean, there was the polling wasn't really showing that Labor would get a majority last time around the COVID election. Some said it would, some said it wouldn't, and they did. So to be honest, romp home is 63 or 64 seats, and if they're currently polling around 58, 59, 60, it's maybe not. That's how I'd respond to that. I also agree with you too. I think it will be close, but on the day, if people don't turn out, if the left don't vote, then the right may romp home. It's kind of how it works. Can I say as well, very, very generous from, I'm going to say Eric. Do you pronounce it Eric? E-R-I-C-H?
It's Eric Rader. Yep.
Eric Rader, very, very generous super chat. Thank you for that. We appreciate that greatly. There is something that I hope we will see being introduced to New Zealand in the future, which involves hyperbaric oxygen being used to treat treatments, resistance trauma, post-traumatic stress. This is being done overseas. So hyperbaric oxygen, I assume, is like the iron lung, like when people come up from getting the bends and they go into the hyperbaric chamber to have nitrogen bubbles not come up in their blood. So they're basically, I think, in a heavily intensified oxygen environment. That's what I read it as. Is that what you read it as, Chewy?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know very much about that, Eric. I might take a wee note and have a look it up. And again, thank you very much for your very generous super chat. Speaking of super chats, I'll tell you this now. If you're watching tomorrow night And just because our numbers are growing every single show, I'm sure we'll tail off a little bit after the election, but up until the election they're growing. I'm sure tomorrow night's show will be huge. And just to give you a heads up, probably be very much easier for us to keep an eye on chats if they are super chats. It doesn't mean it has to be $20. That was very generous, Eric. But, I think the least you can do is 49 cents or something like that. It just helps us to keep a track on them and share them during the news break. But just to let you know, because it'll be flying by tomorrow night, trust me, won't it, Chewy? It'll be flying by.
Yes.
So there's a bit of a roundup about today's news. I mean, the polls are what the polls are. The left seems to be staying about where it is. The right seems to be trending down a bit. And then Winston seems to be getting a little bit more traction. I have to say, as much as of annoyance he is and how much I despise him, more so today than ever before, Winston Peters is very clever. He's a very cagey old dog. I've noticed he's been using the word surge. You're not going to stop the surge. So voters hear that and they think, oh, we can get on board. The language of voting is really important. Like you say, it's over. It's a landslide. People won't vote. What's said publicly can help or hinder actually what's happening in the election. And I think the word surge from him has been quite strategic and quite clever. Not in favour of the result, but I'm just saying purely looking at it politically, it's been quite a clever way to explain to his followers and people who are thinking, is this going to be a wasted vote? Oh no, they're surging. Let's get on board. So it's been pretty clever by the old dog. Is that all?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll see how that all ends up. Anything in the chat we want to get to? Anything else we want to throw out there?
What have I started here? There was an answer to who in New Zealand were. It's an evangelist party, right. Alpha Nago's ego party.
Nio, I think, isn't it? Yeah, I can't remember. Someone actually asked me about them today. A colleague of mine, and I said, sure, if you want to waste your vote, go for it.
Yeah, because God knows the house needs more evangelicals.
He was a former National Party MP, wasn't he?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. All right. There's someone talking about Eric Rader. Something about a Nazi did 10 years after Nuremberg, got off lightly.
Yeah, I did clock that name. He was an admiral in the German army. So German Kriegsmarine. I was just checking to make sure he wasn't well, they're all bad, aren't they? But wasn't in.
He's one of the good Nazis, was he?
Oh God, what a minefield!
So we got a bit of.
He was convicted of war crimes for waging an aggressive war.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
probably not.
He wasn't in command of a concentration camp, though.
Probably not the smartest handle to use in our chats. But thank you once again for the $20 of Nazi war gold. Got it out of your Swiss bank account. Okay, let's keep going, shall we? I think this one's fascinating. There is, because most of us are concerned would be the right word when we're talking about some of the biggest banks in the world. But one of the biggest banks in the world today has come out literally saying National's tax cuts would be inflationary. Now, Christopher Luxon to Jack Tame has already said they're inflationary. Remember, Jack Tame trapped him. I don't know whether it was on purpose or not, when he said they'd be no more inflationary than what the government was spending. So yes, they are inflationary. And then there was a debate with Nicola Willis, and she read out Treasury statement that she thought it was a defence of their tax cuts, where it said it wouldn't be as inflationary, which means it was still inflationary, maybe just not as inflationary as what some of the spending was. And that comes down to the fact that some people were going to save it. So if 30% of people saved it, it would probably be 70% as inflationary. So we've already been told it's inflationary by Luxon. We've already been told it's inflationary by Nicola Willis. But they still seem to have this dilemma that when they get told their tax cuts are inflationary, they go, nuh-uh. And I'm not entirely sure why, Chewy, because both of them have already told us that they are. And now Goldman Sachs has jumped in.
And National leader Christopher Luxon is disputing criticism from Goldman Sachs that his promised tax cuts will increase the cost of living.
Thought John Key would have been calling his mates back in Goldman Sachs saying, hey guys, let's just release this after the election, eh? Maybe that would be a good idea.
It comes as the Council of Trade Unions, a strong Labor ally, claims only 3,000 households would actually benefit from the maximum tax cut National is offering.
3,000.
Political reporter Amelia Wade explains.
Remember we talked about this last night, the caveats that come with that promise of $250 a fortnight. There are several caveats. Council of Trade Unions, obviously they were listening to the show last night, they've come out and they've nailed it down even more to show you exactly who will be getting them.
The campaign is rolling on for Labor without its leader.
So good.
Visiting well-fed in Porirua to learn how to make good kai for cheap, a big focus of their campaign.
I wish cooking was
a roll-up, a scroll.
The cost of living a big focus for National's campaign too.
National will help with tax relief of up to $250 a fortnight.
To get that, the family must be spending at least $300 a fortnight on childcare and needs 2 adults earning between $53,500 and $66,000 to get the $25.30 per week tax.
So there, let's just pause it on that.
Jesus.
So this is the
Lower
criteria.
middle income New Zealand.
This is well, remember, minimum wage is $47,000. We learnt that yesterday from Mr. Luxon. Just kidding. He didn't know. Anyway, so it's not that much higher above minimum wage, but, you know, within that band. But also remember, childcare implies early childhood education. So the one thing that this doesn't say from the CTU, pardon me, is that also your child needs to be between 2 and 5. Because if you're spending $300 per week, so funnily enough, News Hub has said per week. Why don't we say per fortnight? Because that's what National does. So if you're spending $600 a fortnight, they will give you a $250 a week tax cut, a fortnight tax cut. So you're still spending $350 a fortnight. Now, on top of all of that, remember they're getting rid of the 20 hours of free childcare that is under Labor. So what this also means is some people with that childcare who are currently getting it free, it may not be the full $300, but a portion of that free will now be paying $300 and be given back in tax cuts far less than $300, up to $125 a week. So when you look at the details, apparently that's where the devil is. Not that I'm calling Mr. Luxon the devil. Others might. I wouldn't. That's where the devil is always in the detail. So this is what the CTU has done. They've made it very, very clear. $300 per week. 2 people earning precisely between 53 and 66. So there's a $13,000 band there you have to fit into. Then you can get $125 a week.
Pat.
Yes.
You know how their tax calculator was giving nothing last night? It's because they've relaunched it.
I did some numbers on it this evening to share with you as well.
The new one?
Yeah, I guess so. It was this evening.
Okay, I'm going to do my one then while you're
All right,
talking.
you do yours and we'll play some more of the story from the CTU.
Cut. And the Council of Trade Unions has worked out just how many families would get that and estimates only about 3,000 households would.
If the National Party disagrees with this analysis, it should show who benefits and when.
But hang on, that means you have to show the workings, and they don't need to do that because they've written a one-line summary.
Families will get the $200.
I can't remember exactly the full number. I can come back to you afterwards.
Nationals also disagreeing with other numbers. The world's largest investment banks warning those tax cuts would actually make the cost of living worse by raising inflation.
Disagree strongly. Our tax plan is actually fully funded.
For Christopher Luxon,
You've already said it's inflationary, Mr. Luxon. You said it to Jack Tame. You said, quote, no more inflationary than the government spend. That means it's inflationary. You've already said it.
Say I disagree is not good enough. He actually needs to show why it's not true, and he hasn't done that.
What both major parties have done today is serve up more slams. Labor's saying the Nats' plan to change benefits would put more children in poverty.
Chris Luxon, if he wins, the rest of New Zealand loses.
While the Nats are saying Labor MPs are openly defying their leader with a want for a wealth tax.
I think that is, you're seeing very clearly from the Labor Party caucus, you've had 3 MPs, I think, come out over the last 24 hours.
So I think this is a complete beat up by the National Party to distract from the fact that their own tax plan doesn't stack up.
National's campaign chair taking to Twitter to say the Labor Party was lying about offering up Grant Robertson to debate Luxon instead of Hipkins. But the press editor has confirmed Robertson was in fact offered up for the debate.
Why was he lying on Twitter yesterday about Grant Robertson not putting his hand up to debate you?
Well, we haven't had a formal appeal to say I want to, for us to debate Grant Robertson.
And Chris, the stutter, remember from the debate night, the stutter comes out when he gets caught in something.
To debate Grant Robertson.
And Chris Bishop should apologise for that, and actually he should probably just calm down.
I don't think Chris Bishop has anything to apologise for.
So no scrolls of sorries being served up today, just some scrolls themselves.
Okay, well...
So here's the thing, yeah? Let's have a look at that CTU information. I've just worked it out. Because there's approximately 2 million households in New Zealand. If the CTU is correct, and National need to show their workings, and that the $125 a week, $250 a fortnight tax cut is available to 3,000 households, that is, can you see my number? 0.15%. So that's about 1/8 of 1% of the country. So this cornerstone flag tax policy, election policy about up to $250 a week will affect 0.15%. That's not 15%, that's 0.15 of 1% of the country. Those are the people that they're speaking to with the hundreds of thousands of dollars they're spending on advertising, telling the rest of us who aren't getting it, which is 99.85% of us who aren't eligible for that, when 0.15% of us are. 3,000 households out of 2 million households. Chewy.
The tax cut is not for us. It is not for low and middle income earners. It never was.
Yeah.
This is something that is not a surprise. It is data that has been banging around for a while, that it was never going to stand up, that it doesn't do the things that they said it was, that it's not going to be funded in the way that they think it is, or the way that they're telling us it is.
Yeah.
It is a lie and has always been a lie. They can't defend it. That's why they don't want anybody to look at it. That's why they get so shitty when people point out what a fucking tissue thin pretense of a policy that they've come up with. Like, it's just nonsense. The Greens come out and they showed their working right from the get-go. And they got a fraction of the play with it.
Yeah.
Because they're the Greens. And because Chippy said, don't worry about it. We're not doing it. But National can just parade this pile of shit down Main Street on a float, and everybody goes, oh, that's fucking great. Like, well, the media, well,
yeah, bingo.
Like, they have this access. They have a ton of the access, the resources that we have. And it's people like us, it's Spider Hoof, and was it Dave, the other one?
The other Paul.
They're the ones that are holding this up to the light.
Yeah, and this is Spider Hoof. Hi Spider Hoof. Everyone say hi Spider Hoof. Hi Spider Hoof. Did you do that in primary school? Everyone say good evening to Mr. Spider Hoof.
Hello, Mr. Spider Hoof.
I posted all about this BS data ages ago, and I posted it. $75 childcare scam months ago when they first released it. Fuck you to the media for not picking up on it way back then. But also, let's be fair, fuck you to Labour. I mean, why was it me? Why am I the first person to hear me? Am I the first person? I haven't heard anyone else say 0.15% of all households are eligible for that. No, I haven't heard anyone else say that. I worked it out here, thanks to the CTU, but Labor could have done those numbers. They could have worked it out. What are their back end people doing? I've got their fucking digital media people contacting me going, hey, do you want some information? I'm like, why don't you just go and do some fucking work? Honestly, go and do some fucking work. Work this out for yourself. Get it out there amongst your people and stop people like me and Chewy and Spiderhoof and Paul the other one and all these people who are telling the rest of the nation about this and not getting the traction. And the people who are watching, the 500,000 people who watch fucking TVNZ are getting none of it. It's infuriating. And actually, fuck you, Labour. You have not done your job. You have not done your job, Labour. You have done this nation wrong. Sorry, Jay.
Someone should offer a tax-free threshold to pay for it with wealth tax. They have the Greens. The Greens did it. It's just like when people talk about how politics is all the same and it doesn't matter who they vote for. They keep voting for the people in the middle that are just shuffling the ball.
Yeah.
Shuffling the ball, giving us the same platitudes about the squeezed middle. Oh, we care about you low and middle income earners. No, you don't. Never fucking do. You don't talk about the people that matter. You don't talk about the people that have to live with the consequences of these policies for longer than anyone else. It's all just so tiresome. And I think, how long, if you're young, like if you're under 30, how long can you maintain the rage before you just go, you know what? Doesn't matter. Not going to get angry about it. Just not going to get involved. Just going to clock out. Just going to clock out. Doesn't matter. Change anything.
Maintaining the rage right now. Fuck him.
Yeah, maintaining the rage. Yeah.
Tracy says, obviously with tongue in cheek, you could always join Labour, Pat, and get a job. It's like the thing is, I think most people who sit on the left in this kind of space would happily help out parties on the left to get their messaging out there. But do you hear anything from them? They won't even come on the show. Like even when they're leaders in isolation, they won't even come on the show. And look, I'm not bitter about that. No one's ever entitled to their time, right? We really aren't. But it's like they just, I just think I just had a little moment there. When we worked in radio, that was called blowing your foo-foo valve. I just blew my foo-foo valve. Based on how I've just realised what a shit job Labor's done. And I'm not voting for Labor this year, so I'm not a Labor supporter, but I certainly want the left to get through. And as goes Labor, so goes the left. And they're just done a shithouse job. So fuck them right in the arsehole.
I just want to point out, Martin, you may have misconstrued me. Democracy is still a good idea. I'm not calling for whatever you want. I assume it's some sort of universe based on the Warhammer 40k works. Democracy is still good. However, there are some things that we can do to change democracy. I think we've been quite vocal here on the show that we should remove money from political donations and that sort of thing. I think we are really seeing an election that is skewed very heavily on that. The sheer weight of advertising that is coming out of the right because they just have literal money to burn, where no business has donated any money to Labour for like 5 years. Like, that's fucked. It is absolutely fucked. Get money out of politics. Get the lobbyists out of politics. If you were an MP and you want to go and work in an industry, you get no access to your mates anymore.
And vice versa. If you used to work in that industry, then you recuse yourself from being involved in legislation around that industry. Goes both ways.
Yeah. The other thing, still think it's a good idea. Nobody's knocking down my door on this one. If you're an MP and you're in your house and you are setting legislation and that sort of thing, you should not have any investments. That is it. Make the choice. Make the hard choice. You're going into politics. You're going to become a public servant. Then sell up, because every choice you make affects your investments.
Yeah.
Put your house in a blind trust. I don't care. Just don't have it. Don't have 7 houses. No. Don't have a close personal friend that you play golf with every weekend as the head of Fonterra. That's just an example I've pulled out of thin air. But by the way, I'm not accusing anyone. Don't own Auckland Airport. These are just simple rules. We'll change the system. But also, if things aren't changing, stop voting the way that you usually do. Go more extreme. Move the needle more.
We're going to move into the last subject of the day. But before we do that, very generous super chat from Caleb. Thanks, Caleb. Caleb with a K. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I really like that. Caleb with a K. I wonder if Caleb's is really with a K or that's like his handle. It's with a C, but online it does it with a K. But I like that, Caleb with a K. Strategy-wise, is there any reason to electorate vote for a party that you know will already get into Parliament? The party vote will make sure they end up at the same number of seats. Go to Party Māori top Greens. Yes, the only reason your electorate vote counts is if you're in a Māori seat or if you're somewhere like Ilam. Or I guess Central Auckland with Chloe. So those ones where smaller parties, Chloe doesn't really even matter that much because the Greens will be there, but I think to have a Green member winning seats is quite important. The more seats, the better for the smaller parties. Obviously, Ilam would get top in, so that matters. But other than that, no, your electorate vote doesn't really matter at all, unless, of course, you have a real passion for having a particular person as an MP in your electorate. So where I live, I don't know if it's the same for you, Chewy, but where I am, David Clark is the outgoing
I'm the same electorate as
MP
you.
here. Now, he's not restanding, but if he was restanding and I really wanted to have a Labour MP as my local MP, then yeah, I'd vote for David Clark. But if I didn't care whether a Labour MP won it or a National, because I'm never doing anything locally, then all that matters is my party vote, because the party vote, okay, I'm going to oversimplify it. I know you all geniuses know this, but the party vote is all that matters. That denotes the number of MPs unless you don't get to 5%, like top, for example. So let's say you get 50% of the vote, just for argument's sake, down the line. That's 60 seats in Parliament. If you win 28 electorate seats, then you get 32 list MPs. If you win 20 electorate seats, then you get 40 MPs, so 50% of the votes. If your party vote is 50%, you get 60 seats. You get 60 MPs. The first amount of them is made up by the electorate seats. So if you get 3 electorate seats, then you get 3 electorate seats, and you get 57 list MPs. So that's why it doesn't make any difference as long as you cross the 5% threshold as to how many MPs there are for voting that way or not. So, Caleb, what I would say to you is that if you are in one of those seats where there is potentially, Tamaki, there is a bit of a battle on for Tamaki, Central Auckland, Ilam, don't know if there's any others really, that could be all. Most other ones, doesn't really matter. What do you think, Joey?
Yeah, no, like my mind is like I've spoken on the show before. As for many years, I considered myself a Labour voter that actually votes Green because I would like Labour to go more left. That's how I voted. I think this is the first election that I have gone. I am a Green voter.
Right.
Like I've voted Green for the last 4 election cycles, but in my heart, I was a Labour supporter. Not anymore. Not anymore. I think they haven't earned that, and the Greens have this time round. So I think if the main parties, the guys that do the lion's share of taking of the seats and that sort of thing, if you want to drag them one way, pick a support party. That's the way that I'd go. Before we move on to something else, I just want to address something I've seen twice now, 2 in a row. Kiwi Rob, am I basically saying that people shouldn't do well for themselves? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, as your wealth increases, as you do well for yourself, so does your responsibilities in maybe this isn't the right word, but your debt to the country that has allowed you to do well for yourself, the country that educated you, kept you.
But it's not only that. Especially it depends when you're doing well for yourself. If, for example, you're a factory owner and your factory is doing amazingly, then there's also a whole bunch of people who are working in that factory. Yes, they're getting paid and stuff as well, but there's also a social debt to them to help you get where you're going as well. No man is an island. It's like this is, and Chewy's right. There's a free education system. The road you drive on for your business that gets your packages around that you're now making, you're building your widgets. There's, And what is the saying? To those who are given more is expected. So it's
I like that.
Yeah,
I like
it's That's whatever. I don't even know what Kiwi Rob's talking about because that was never intimated by any of us, and I don't think we should be talking about it.
No, it's popped up the last couple of nights, but
yeah, that's probably more a reflection on Kiwi Rob than what we're talking about, Joey.
Yeah, like it's not a jealousy of people that are doing very well. It is my expectation, like I would expect from any leader, is I would expect them to do more than the average person does. That's what puts them in that position. But what I think we've seen over the last couple of years, and it's not just a New Zealand problem, you know, neoliberalism has moved the dial for a bunch of people that have built up vast amounts of money. And they seem to think there that I only got here through my own pluck and vim. You certainly didn't climb over the hard work of the people that are in working for you and that sort of thing, and reflecting back on what your country has given you.
Yeah.
You know, one thing you could talk about, Pat, is having an educated workforce, having a healthy workforce.
Yep.
Having the infrastructure to build your business and that sort of thing. And I think there's a lot of people out there that just go, no, I've built this. This is mine. And everybody that wants some of it is just jealous. Like back in post-World War II times, in a bunch of Western countries, top tax rate for individuals was sometimes up around 60, 70, even higher percentage. Like I think at one point America had something like a 90% top tax rate.
Yep.
And people still had business empires. They still built skyscrapers with their names on them. They still did all of these big things. They built a dynasty. But their workforce was educated. You could buy a house on a single income. You could, in the case of America, you could fight multiple wars, build up your nuclear arsenal, and go to the moon at the same time. And these are the times that everybody seems to go and go, oh, remember the good old days. I mean, ignore the racism, obviously, but remember the good old days. That's when that happened. And then if you track back where everything started to get a bit wibbly wobbly and a bit shit, it was the 80s. It was neoliberalism. It's like, if we want people to keep making money, making a country rich, we've got to take less of their money and just leave them alone. I wonder what happens then.
Yeah.
And that's where we've had public infrastructure privatized. We've had things actively get worse. And we've turned all of our focus on the poor. And God, this is your fault. You know, with Luxon talking about this crackdown on beneficiaries, the figure that I saw, there's a vast majority of people that are on a job seeker benefit are off within 12 months. Yet he's talking about people that with this lifestyle of being on the benefit that is just built on prejudice. There is so much wrong. And if we look at the thing that's wrong is that we're voting. It's not. It's that we need to ask more of people. It's that we need to ask more of leaders. I've said this multiple times. If you're on the right, you should be asking more of the right. In my opinion, more honesty, more intellectual honesty, more cooperation. Yes, you can go, look, there's ideological differences, but I think there are too many people in Parliament that are... There are people that are there for the good reasons, and there are people that are not.
Agreed. So when you blow your foo-foo valve, you're much more calm than
that. Was a
it's
pretty
funny.
Spectacular blow, right?
But you weren't blowing.
Yeah.
You weren't blowing. You were just calm, and I lose my cool. Now, speaking of losing our cool, there is actually another super chat, and I'll mention it now because we want to make sure we honour that. From JC, $5. Thanks so much for your super chat. Because this also ties into the vote. From a small party's point of view, having an electorate seat done well helps build goodwill with constituency, good for the party. Completely agree, and that's why Ilam, again, perfect example. You know, I mean, that's how ACT started, and now they're going to be they were a potentially 15% party, but now they're fast travelling towards 8%. But, you know, compared to 0.2%, the reason they're there now is because they've held a electorate seat for the last 20 years or whatever it has been since they've been in there with Rodney Hyde and others. So, yeah, for a small party, an electorate seat's far more valuable and worthwhile, which I guess is why I said There are a few local electorates that matter. Most don't. So we're moving on. From this morning's AM show, this relates to our conversation last night with Raf and the leader of the opposition being asked about doing a deal with Top.
I'm well. Are you going to do a deal with Raf Manji?
We're doing no deals with any political parties across New Zealand this election. We've got a fantastic candidate here in Ilam, Hamish Campbell, who's doing a brilliant job. And frankly, a vote for Top or any other minor party is a vote for Labour and more of the same of New Zealand going backwards. And so it's all about party vote national. That's what we want New Zealanders to understand.
That definitely wasn't included in the question.
But that is a bizarre thing to say, and we will actually, he gets asked about that later. But let me just say, he said a vote for anyone other than national is a vote for Labour. So New Zealand First, ACT, you know what I mean? Because he said any minor party, any party other than national. Now, does he genuinely mean that, or was that a brain fart? Ryan Bridge jumps in and does ask him that later on, so I'll give you that as well. I'll give you the answer to it. He's still talking about Raf and Top.
Wouldn't you prefer to work with Raf over Winston Peters, though?
As I said, we're not doing deals with any political party. That's a choice for New Zealand people to determine how they exercise their party vote, and as a result, what results we get on election night. And as I've been saying now for months, is a vote for any other party, Top or any other minor party, is frankly a vote for Labour, wealth tax,
any other
and more
minor
going
party
backwards. And that's just not what we're up for.
So he's just said a vote for ACT is a vote for wealth tax, because he said any other minor party is a vote for wealth tax. That's ACT. That's New Zealand First.
I think New Zealanders understand they need change. They've actually got to step up to the plate and actually vote for change, and that means party vote national.
Have you talked to Raf about this, or has he tried to call you to do a deal?
Our team have made it very clear to him months ago that actually that is not on the table. It's not something that we're even interested in.
So he tried months ago to try and do this?
Yeah, and frankly...
That's not what Raf told us last night. We'll replay something. Luxon has just said that Raf tried to do a deal months ago.
It's just not going to happen. We are not doing deals with any political party across New Zealand. The message is really simple. If you want change, if you think the country's heading in the wrong direction, you may need be an undecided voter. You may never have voted for National before, but actually National's going to govern for all New Zealanders.
No deals.
Why do they let him run on this stuff, eh?
Yeah, I guess that's what they're doing, though, isn't it? So last night we spoke to Raf about that, and I repeated a quote from the news item that attributed something to him that he hadn't said, but he did end up saying this to us last night.
Well, I'm not calling on National to stand aside. No, I have never said that.
I'm not calling on National to stand aside. I've never said that. Yet Luxon just said that he asked them to stand aside. Now, could they both be saying the same thing? Perhaps, but it doesn't sound like that to me.
So you're digging a little bit under the ground here and putting words in my mouth, which I haven't said.
Okay, I'll repeat that. The article said, and it seemed to be attributing it to you. So you're not calling on National to stand aside. You've never had that intimation publicly.
No, because that would be rude. I mean, it's a contest, and I think it would be rude to ask someone to stand aside. No, but
so to be clear, what I said was you've never said that publicly or privately, and he said no. Luxon is saying he said it privately. He contacted them. Now, what's the truth in all that? I'm not sure we entirely know. I wanted to highlight one other thing about the conversation last night because I was uneasy with the conversation and I couldn't figure out why. I finally figured out why. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll have already seen this today. And I'll explain it, Chewy. Raf tells us, let me just play the audio, which finally explains what my uneasy feeling was. This is talking about, what he's trying to achieve with Top.
As far as I'm concerned, my main goal is to get the Opportunities Party into Parliament, and I'm going to do that by winning Ilam, and then we'll see what happens.
So my last question, Chewy, I know I've asked every question, then you can jump in with whatever you want, sir. What happens if Labour offered you a cup of tea?
I don't know. Like I said, I haven't even had a conversation.
No, but you haven't had an offer from National either, and we're having that conversation. What would you do if Labour said to you, "Well, we'll put all our support behind you now and tell all our people to vote for you"? What would that mean for you?
I don't think I'd be interested in that. I mean, to be honest, I don't really want a cup of deal. It's I'm going to win Ilam, but strategically for National, it makes sense for them to have insurance.
So, for clarity, he said, "I don't think I'd be interested in that." Now, this is what I realised my uncomfortable feeling was by the end of the night. And I'll just read my text out. Raf states that, quote, "My main goal is to get Top into Parliament," right? So that's his goal, to get Top into Parliament. but also says, I don't think I'd be interested in that when I ask him, what if Labor offered you the seat? Now, if Labor offered them the seat, he'd get into Parliament. So he's saying his main goal is to get top into Parliament, but I don't think I'd be interested in doing a deal with Labor. So this is the uncomfortable feeling that I had last night, and this is where I've kind of got to. I figured out my uneasiness about this new tactic. It seems what Ref is actually saying is that top wants to be in government, not just in Parliament.
Okay.
Hence, well, because why would he say no to Labor? Because if Labor supporters in Ilam got behind him, he'd be in Parliament. But he went, oh no, I don't really want to do that. I think I'd say no to that. So a little addendum, but sometimes what happens with me is I think about it through the day and I kind of go, that's what it is. So it feels to me like what Top is saying is we want to be in the decision-making process, because that's he's saying, and most people are saying, that's going to be National Act New Zealand First. Even though he's saying, I just want to get into Parliament, why would he turn down a free ride from Labor? What's the reason? The only reason is he doesn't want to be on Labor's side. He wants to be either on the right, or because they are more likely to be in Parliament, he wants to be in Parliament. So it's not that Top wants to be in government. It's not that Top wants to be in Parliament, it's that Top wants to be in government. And that was, I think, I realised today, the uneasy feeling I had about the whole conversation yesterday and couldn't quite figure it out. So why they've moved from supporting no one to supporting both sides to supporting National is they were saying supporting no one. This is my analysis. Supporting no one when they didn't know. They moved to they could support either side when it was a 50-50 call. And now they've moved to they're supporting National because it looks like National is the hand up. So that's what that's how I see it, at least. And now it makes more sense to me after I've seen it like that. I could be wrong, but why would you be saying no to Labor if my main goal is to get Top into Parliament? Why would you say no to Labor? That makes no logical sense.
The other thought that I had about this, right? Okay, say if he got his wish, right, and that he got in somehow with either of the parties, right?
Yeah.
Most of what I have liked about Top some of their policies.
Yep.
But if you've got one seat and you're there just to swing the numbers, how likely are you to get any of those policies that I like across the lines? Like, they're policies that I would like from a party that would hold the majority of power. Like, if Labor rolled out the teal card and called it something else, I'd be like, this is fucking great policy. But it's the same thing that all the minor parties have. You can have fantastic policy. You may never have to come along and actually put it into effect.
Yeah.
You have to do some negotiation. And I think one RAF in politics is not going to get the teal card through under Labor. Because it'd be like, what do you want, RAF? What do you want? Teal card? No. Sorry, Ref, get out.
But using ACT as an example again, if Top's sole purpose is to get into Parliament, then the teal card comes along in, government number 3. If your sole focus is just to get in, then it's much more easy to stay in once you're in. So you get in, who cares if it's with Labor or National, you just get in. He says that's his main priority. You do the mahi for the next 3 years, you own the seat, and then you start to say how you're going to get your policies through. But that's what I'm saying. It feels like that maybe the decision he's making is based, or they're making is based around wanting to be at the seat of power immediately. It's not that they want to be in Parliament, it's that they want to be in government. Or else, I'll say it again, or else they wouldn't say no to Labor if their objective was just to get into Parliament, would they?
No.
Yeah. All right, we're going to keep going with this conversation with Mr. Luxon this morning, because I think this is interesting as well. It's a story about, it's part of the conversation where they're talking about their policy from yesterday, better health outcomes. You might be surprised, True, a couple of big holes in it. A couple of big holes.
Okay, let's talk about your better health outcomes, which you released yesterday. And you've got quite a few points on how to get the health system back on track. You say in your first 100 days you want to make some changes to the healthcare system. What changes will you make in that first 100 days?
Well, what we've said consistently is we're going to increase the healthcare budget each and every year. We know there's massive cost pressures in the system going forward for the next few years, and we're going to continue to support all of that and make sure we get good growth in funding. We're going to move the money from the back office to the frontline services. We're going to put targets back in place. We're going to grow the workforce. But yesterday what we announced was that we're also going to fund continuous glucose monitoring for type 1 diabetes for children under the age of 18.
Cool.
We also announced that we want to have 3-day stays for new.
This is the one I want to talk about. 3-day stays for mums in hospital, right? Because this just goes to show their non-planning sloganeering.
Mums in hospital and make sure that they stay there. Or they've got an opportunity.
Do we have the beds for that?
We're going to fund that.
Well, how are you going to do that? We're going to fund that. There's not an answer. Show us your receipts. Show us your workings.
We have the funding in place to make sure that wherever a mum is choosing to have her baby, that actually she has a right to stay there up until 72 hours or 3 days.
Will that be in the first 100 days?
Up to 2 days. That's where we want to get going with it quickly, but in our 100-day plan, we've announced that on the weekend. We've got a lot of things on our plate to get through. And the third thing, Laura, which I did want to talk about was, we are also going to increase the amount of psychiatrists and psychologists that we train in this country. And so putting some investment and funding into that, because particularly for young people who are trying to get internships, say in psychology, that's been a real challenge and a real difficulty to actually get them trained and set up to go. So those are the 3 new things that we announced yesterday as part of our overall health manifesto.
For a voter at home right now who may be pregnant, when they have their baby in however many months' time, however far along they are, will they be able to stay in hospital for 3 days if you are elected in?
Yes. Yeah, we want them to be able to stay there for 3 days, for 72 hours. Today it's 48 hours, 2 days, and as you know, Laura, many women actually don't know that that's their entitlement. That'll be made very clear to them to make sure that they can actually do that, and they can do it in a place of wherever they choose to have their baby.
So, let's talk about that, shall we? Already within the baby making industry, if there is a need for a mum to stay in hospital or for the baby to stay in hospital, they can stay in hospital for as long as they want, right? They never get kicked out should there be a need for them to stay. What Mr. Luxon has just done is he has potentially tied up hundreds and hundreds of beds for longer than is necessary, and I guarantee you it's going to put pressure on birthing units. There's birthing units all around the country that are private, and he's just said anywhere they choose to have their baby. Those birthing units don't have a huge number of beds like private institutions, right? And he just said anywhere someone chooses to have their baby. You could well have mums going now, I've got another day, so I'm going to stay, when they're completely capable of moving out, and that could hold up the next group of people coming in. To make this, again, a flagship cornerstone policy to say we want our mums to stay for 3 days, wherein the reality is we want our mums to stay for as long as they need it. For some of them, it's more than 3 days. For others, it's far less than 3 days. But now there is going to be more pressure on beds, no more staff turning up all of a sudden, but the same number of mums coming in. Imagine if you now had everyone staying for an extra third, but you got the same number of midwives, the same number of nurses, the same number of beds, but everyone's staying for an extra third. Can anyone else see a bit of a bottleneck coming up there, Chewy, where people are staying longer? And look, I'm not telling to kick mums out either. I know that the other end of the extreme, some people say we got asked to leave after 12 hours. I'm not saying that's okay, but the other side of the extreme, saying now stay for 3 days when some mums don't need to is going to cause a bottleneck. And it feels like electioneering and bumper stickering, again, with no real substance to it. Because if you need to stay for longer than 3 days for whatever medical reason, you stay as long as you need to. That's already, I was going to say the law, I don't know, the health system. So this is a peculiar one to me, too. It sounds like someone trying to put out a bumper sticker of, this will be a popular policy, let's just do this, shall we? What are your thoughts?
Pat, if I was an uncharitable person, I would say, don't you worry, because private birthing units are standing by, ready and able to let people stay for 3 days, and they will happily build the government.
Like that, like what Guru just said.
Oh, well, he's just stolen my idea. Yeah, a massive right-wing donor that owns a whole bunch of birthing units. Wife, that's just a fucking coincidence. You know, it's okay. There's been massive problems with maternity beds down in the south of the South Island. People giving birth in cars and stuff like that. It sounds good. It falls apart when you look at it. It is the perfect national policy. It's horribly corrupted, horribly compromised, and he doesn't have an answer for how it works. It's perfect.
And if you're staying for an extra day, so that's 50% longer. Yeah. So for 2 more days, add 1. That 50% of 2 is 1. So you're staying 50% longer. What that actually means in theory is you could be dropping the number of available beds by that same percentage. Because now if you've got 2 beds in your unit, I know they've got bigger than that, and now 2 mums are staying for 3 days, when they could have stayed for a day and a half or 2 days or whatever. Now they're going, well, no, National says I can stay. I'm staying for 3 days. So I don't care. I'm going to stay here. This is hard. It's a new thing. I'm staying here. Sure, fine. No criticism of you, mum. But that now puts pressure on with the next round of mums coming in. Unless, of course, National can also organise, having a timetable for the number of babies being born at the right time so they put no pressure on it. Maybe they can do that. Maybe.
It's just so... why didn't National make their billboards out of lace so you could see through those as well? Why are these gormless idiots on the AM show just letting this guy run his talking points with some pushback? Sure, but it's pretty fucking mild. I just want Jack it doesn't matter what network they're on, what show they're on. Jack Tame should just appear behind Luxon with a sheet of papers going, well, we've looked at the numbers, Chris. You're fucked, mate. And then hit him with a steel chair. Just all the time.
Either Jack Tame or Chloe. Now, the next part, the final part of this conversation I've already brought up earlier, is that, remember, he was saying any party, vote for any other party, it's a vote for National. Of course, Ryan Bridge had to come on and remind Mr. Luxon of his talking points.
It's Ryan here. Nice to have you on the show. At the start of this interview, you said that a vote for TOP or any other minor party is a vote for Labour. Is that true? I mean, if you're voting for ACT or for New Zealand First, you're voting for a change of government too, aren't you?
Well, my message is if you want a guaranteed change of government, what you need is to party vote National. That is the thing that I really want people to understand.
But saying that a vote...
But hang on, Mr. Luxon. Remember, those of us who want to see you guys get through are aware you might need some help. And it sounds like you're saying you don't need help, but, I think you have to remember that those of us who want you guys to win need help. So let me just remind you of the talking points here.
But saying that a vote for TOP or a vote for any other minor party being a vote for Labour is not true, is it?
Well, what I mean is my preference is I want everyone voting for the National Party,
right.
And I think we've got the policies and the ideas to take it forward. And what I mean by that is if people of Ilam are watching this, they have a great candidate in Hamish Campbell. We want them party voting National, and anything else is really not going to help guarantee a change of government, and that's what I think most New Zealanders want to see happen.
Not most New Zealanders, some New Zealanders. There you go, Chewy.
Can you imagine, just imagine, 3 years of that man dealing with the media as Prime Minister? We'd never know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Mr. Luxon, what did you have for breakfast? Look, I think I've been perfectly clear, and the message that I want people to take away is that I enjoy breakfast food. Yeah, great. What did you have? Well, I had breakfast food, as I've previously stated, and I think I've been perfectly clear. Yes, but what breakfast food, motherfucker?
Yeah, no, but you're right, because breakfast is one of the most important meals of the day, and I always make sure that breakfast food is ingested during breakfast time. So thank you for your question.
I eat breakfast food like low and middle income, good, solid Kiwi workers. I eat breakfast. Fucking hell.
Hey, there was and Nikki was saying that. Well, what I mean is, let's just have a look at this last thing super quick. This is actually not part of what we talked about.
My breakfast.
I was talking to someone
about my breakfast outcomes.
I was talking to someone today, and they shared with me what their salary was, and it was 6 figures. It was on the low hundreds, and we were talking about tax, and we did this thing together, and because we were talking about who's the best party to vote for if you're going to look for tax breaks and stuff. So this is not my numbers. This is their numbers, their family, their everything, right? And so I think it was 118,000 or something like that was what they said that they earned. It's a friend of mine, so they were happy to share. And so we did the numbers on this new calculator, which you were talking about before, Chewy. Under the national plan, this person receives $26.60 or $26.55 a week, because that's $53.10 a fortnight. So on 118K, this person would receive, and they've got some kids and they've got this and that, they would receive $53.10. Really? Yep. Under Labour, this is, I don't think this is particularly clever of them. Nothing, no change, no change, no change, no change, still no change, still no change for you, no change, no change. I think that Labour's missed something here because they're doing this as a positive, going, well, no, we're not going to give you tax breaks. So it doesn't feel particularly smart to me. Yeah, nah, no change, no change. And then it gets here to 100 and about there-ish, no change. And it keeps on going, nope, no income change. So, you know, so nothing for that person in Labour.
That's my problem right there. Oh, just don't scroll down far enough. Ignore it.
Yeah, well, no change, no change. Still no change. You're in the top 2% of earners. No tax changes for earners below 180,000 or on income over 180,000. New top tax rate of 39%. So what they're saying is, if you're earning over 180,000, you'll pay some more tax, but there's no tax relief for anyone at all under, which I don't think is a particularly smart way of getting votes. Now, $118,000 in the Green Party, you will receive $159 per week. National Party, $26 per week. Green Party, $159 per week. $149 because this person had kids from a family top up to support you and your whānau, and $10 with less tax income. But if they were voting for more money in their pocket, this friend of mine, they'd be voting Green, which gives them $160 a week. Let's call that $320 a fortnight. National, $53 a fortnight. Party of tax cuts, Chewy. I just thought that was interesting.
What stunned me is I did my tax calculator on their new relaunched, what do they call it, putting it in your back pocket or something.
Yep.
And I got, like, I'm within a couple of bucks of what your wealthy friend is. That seems kind of fucked. I'm looking for a comment, and it was ages ago, but we had someone in the chat going, I make 140 something, say. I'm scrolling back to try and find it, and I don't want to pay more tax. I don't think I should pay more tax. And it's like, cool, vote for Labour then, because they're not fucking changing it.
Yeah. Nothing to see here with Labour.
Oh, almost found it. Almost found it.
While you're looking, thanks for the super chat, Mr. Alex. Add to his previous comment on hyperbaric oxygen for treatment resistance trauma PTSD. There was a study in Israel, 2022, by Dr. Shai Efrati. Some of the participants no longer had PTSD. Very good. Appreciate the super chat. Well done.
There we go. $150,000 a year. I don't want to pay more tax. Well, it's a heartwarming attitude, but that means you can vote for Labour.
Well,
is that what you meant?
Or vote for the Greens. You'll get money back. We've just showed you. That was 118.
Yeah. So there you go. Welcome to the left, comrade.
Yeah. Welcome. There's room for all, unless you're bald.
What? Can I'm going to be disparaging, and I'm sure in person you're nice enough, whatever. Can I just say that voting on a tax cut alone has always left me really cold? There's so many important things that you can vote for, and just going that you don't want to pay more tax. It's just such a shit attitude. You know, do you walk past people begging in the street and go, man, I'm sure glad that I don't pay that extra $2 of tax a year?
No, they walk past eating food and having a drink in front of them and getting their $20 notes and ripping them up in their faces. That's what they do.
We can have a better country, and everyone gets to enjoy it, and it's nice, and we've got nice roads, and we've got nice schools, and we've got nice hospitals. Everybody's happy, healthy, and fit. Like, you don't like beggars in the street? Cool. Give them a house. Put them in a house. So they're not cold. So they're not begging. It just makes things nicer. You pay your rates. You get a nicer town out of it. You get like, I like the fact that Dunedin is putting in new kids' playgrounds. I don't have children, and I feel awkward when I use the playground equipment, but I'm glad that it's there. Like, happy kids is a good thing, right? I don't have any children going to school, but I can appreciate that there are massive benefits that if we have nice schools, we have a smarter populace, we have a better workforce. It's just nicer. Just pay tax and get nice things.
Well, and just remember this as well. What is it, Buzzy? Buzzy is saying, for people who are complaining about paying tax and that kind of stuff. Now, if you have a business that was helped by Labor through COVID, or if you are an employee who received income support during COVID, one of the reasons we have more debt at the moment is because Labor kept your business going, and Labor kept you from having to potentially move out of a house, lose a house, whatever. Or if you're an employee, kept you from having to lose your job because your boss got support thanks to Labor. So just remember that the debt, a good portion of the debt that we've got at the moment, which is under control completely, is thanks to the incumbent government, who are now being roasted for these decisions, helping to keep New Zealanders alive, keep businesses going, and keep food on the table for people by doing income support during COVID. And that's another area I'm pretty pissed off, because the word COVID and the lockdowns and mandates has become so toxic. They've leant out of it, and they should have leant into it. They should have leant into it.
Words, in 10 years, we'll be looking back at people going, oh, the foresight of the government in charge when COVID came along and fucking stopped people losing their houses and stuff like that. Like, I think of an interaction I had. I think it was the day that we were going into lockdown. And I was talking to a customer, and I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy, eh? What are your plans for lockdown? And he goes, well, I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to crack a bottle of whiskey. I'm going to lay off all my workers, and then I'm going hunting. And I couldn't understand that. Like, I'd spoken to other business owners that were concerned about how they were going to pay their workers. And then they were being told by the government, don't worry about it. We've got you. And that they weren't going to have to go and face all of these people going, times are uncertain. They're a lot more uncertain for you now because I want more certainty. These are the things that we pay for. We pay for it's literally rainy day stuff. No one could have anticipated a global pandemic.
Other than Bill Gates,
because we had a government that were like, we've got to run this like a business, we pretty much all got through it. So
it's another area our mainstream media has let us down, because it hasn't come up during the campaign at all. And like every high profile right winger who's come out talking down, the debt and that kind of stuff, every person that's happened, every spokesperson that's done, every blogger that's written about that kind of stuff that owns a business, they should have been challenged and asked about how did they survive COVID? Did they use any of the government's money to help survive COVID? Yada, yada, yada. Because I guarantee you a bunch of the people now who are running around talking down the government and talking about bad for business and talking about debt and that kind of stuff, a bunch of them will also be people who benefit from it, who either survived themselves, had their employees survive, had their business survive because of what the government did to run up that debt. In fact, you know what? I didn't receive any of that because I work for myself and I kind of just mooch around my house. But others did. I could probably complain about it because the debt went up to help others, but I don't. Do you know why, Chewy? Because it fucking went to help others, including some of the people in their businesses who are bitching and moaning about it now, talking about this incumbent group are going to be better at running the government, when every time they spit numbers, they come out wrong. I'm not going to blow another foo-foo, not tonight. I can't do a 2 foo-foo night or else I won't sleep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
As far as the COVID response, and I know we've talked about this to death, go back and look at what the Bish said. He was National's COVID response spokesperson. If we took him at his word that we should have done everything that he said he would done, we'd be looking at a dramatically different New Zealand. Dramatically different. It's terrifying how different it is.
Yep.
And I will hold that in my head. We know how good National is at dealing with a crisis because they had Christchurch explode on them.
Mm-hmm.
And people in Christchurch are still dealing with the fallout of the decisions that they made. So, yeah, this is why my fufu valve is permanently fucking blown. There's an image for you.
Well, we'll keep our blown fufus for another night. Thank you for joining us tonight.
90-minute hour.
I'm going to, tomorrow night will be bigger because tomorrow night, remember, we're here at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock for the all parties debate, which will be an absolute blast. And it's Jack Tame, it's Winston Peters, it's David Seymour. It's going to be a fun one. And so be with us tomorrow night we'll be here at 10 to 7. Okay, so it starts at 7, we'll be here at 10 to 7 to join in with you. Thanks to all our patrons. In fact, I think we've had during the show another patron sign up. Tama. Thanks to Tama, who also signed up tonight. But Mulu Magic, Adele, LNE, and Dale Brandfield are new names on our board. If you want to become part of our board, then all you need to do is head to Big Hairy News, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Be a part of what we do. And other than that, we will see you tomorrow night from 7 p.m, 6:50 if you want to get the pre-show drinks underway for the debate. And then whenever we wrap that up will be tomorrow night's show. So no 9 o'clock show tomorrow night from 7 till whenever we finish. Bring a friend. It'll be a busy night. We look forward to seeing you all then. Anything you want to go on, Joey?
Where are we at with t-shirts, Pat?
Oh, actually, I didn't phone him today. Has someone said that in the chat? I meant to, because I don't do much prep on a Thursday because we watch the debate. I was planning on doing a whole bunch of packaging up tomorrow because they haven't turned up yet. I'll do that right now. I'll text the guy and just say, how far away are we? Because I haven't heard from him this week. Yeah, that's my bad. I'll chase that up and we'll make sure we get them onto the courier quick smart. I'll try and I'll update you tomorrow. Cool.
Yep. Nice. Give us a like on the way out the door. Subscribe. Share our chat around. Tell everybody. Shake a non-voter until they decide to vote. I think that covers everything, doesn't it? Be a better, more empathetic person. How about that?
All right. Catch you tomorrow, team. From 7 p.m. Be with us for the debate. Ciao.
Ciao.